We had a great event last week at CXNext, and we had some phenomenal moderators for those different sessions. And I've invited those guys to join me for a quick session of Around the Horn, talking about what did we learn at the event? What did we see? What kind of great customer conversations did we have? And so really excited for this group to join. Nick, Chris, Erica, and Bob, welcome. Great to have you guys here.
Hey,
good to be here.
Be here. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, of course. So the four of you all moderated different sessions, and great job at that. I really enjoyed the work you had done and all the wonderful conversations about real-world applications of customer experience. But I want to kind of take you through a speed around here of asking you guys some questions for those people that couldn't attend or maybe couldn't attend every session to have some highlights from the event. So let's go around. I have 3 questions for each of you. We'll do one question at a time, and we'll start with you, Nick. Nick, what was your key takeaway from your session? What was the big thing that you had as your aha out of the session you ran?
Yeah, so Tiffany St. James, a thought leader, she works with the British government as well as commercial companies. And I think there was this stage of panic. You know, everybody's having to work from home. Companies looking after their employees is a really big challenge and issue at the moment. And she really accentuated the fact that empathy and trust has really come to the forefront of our customers, but also our employees, and she linked that really well together. And it was really impressive. Some of her insights were very informative. She's positioned technology as a force for good, and I think that's really important. So empathy, trust, technology is a force for good. Came away feeling quite inspired by her speeches and her reference points. It was amazing.
That's great. Yeah, empathy is a wonderful word in a time like this. We need definitely more of it. That's awesome. So what about for you, Chris? What was a big takeaway for your session?
I think a key one that I had heard was just around the idea of the excitement about the opportunities that might present itself from having some of your support teams and call centers kind of move remote and work remotely. I know there's a lot of organizations like, well, what's it going to be like, if our whole call center is working from home or not remote? But if you enable them properly, a lot of people that were on my panel were pretty excited to say, hey, this opens up our pool or aperture of where we can actually get talent from instead of limiting it to the regions that were located in our offices. So I was really excited to see them kind of accepting that and, anticipating some bumps in productivity, but thinking that it's going to all come out, for the better at the end.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I think, we all look at our talent base and where can we get talent from, and it's awesome to say, hey, look, and now we really can open that up. And it goes back to Nick's point and also do it in a way that drives empathy of, hey, maybe these people are starting in a remote position, they've never met anyone, but how do we harness their talents and make the organization better? So that's an awesome example. Erica, what about you in the sessions you ran?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the one session that I did with a discussion around creating resiliency, which is of utmost importance during this current time that we're in. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting and promising was how the situation that organizations have found themselves in has really created an opportunity for so much positive change that I think will get carried out in the future. For example, one of the panelists in our discussion, Chad Hassler from Corning Credit Union, talked about how they were able to use technology to, in 5 days, transform the way that their employees were able to get access to information during this transition. And he said that's something that would have taken months, before this, but the fact that the pressure was on and they had to do something, and then the technology was there to be able to enable that, just caused their organization to move a lot more quickly and be more agile.
Yeah, people love using the term the burning platform, like what's going to drive the change. And I think you're spot on that in even these challenging times, sometimes it can be a way to really push your organization forward and look to those things you've been saying you want to do forever, but now it's like you're really forced to do it. And I know Bill talked a lot about that as well in his opening keynote. So that's an awesome example. Bob, what about for you?
Yeah, so actually I want to kind of echo something that Nick said, because it was one of my big takeaways from the entire session as well. I spoke to 2 people that really do desktop support for people's physical systems. And then all of a sudden all those people using them went to work from their homes. And I never, having been a customer of a help desk, even where I work, I'm never thinking empathy when I'm sitting there waiting for my laptop to be fixed. But I was surprised how much empathy drove their actions. That, in both cases, they were really, really concerned about kind of the welfare and experience of the employee. And that really came across to me. It's not usually a part of our conversations, but I've found it to be a part of that conversation and many since during this time. So it is kind of a, I don't know, kind of a heartwarming affirmation that, we care for each other. And in these two cases, these two guys who just are supporting desktop systems, it was at the top of their mind what their user experience was like, to be able to make sure that they were showing empathy to the situation that their constituents were in, whether they were employees like me working from home, or in one case, North Carolina State, these are university administrators working at home from the first time, and how much that went into their thought process of how to deliver their service. So that was a real eye-opener for me, and really one of the more affirming takeaways.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the one thing too that we've been talking a lot about, even in our own internal teams, is how there may have been folks on our team that have been remote for some time. But now that we're all remote, we're all living it. We're all like inside the petri dish, living the real world experience. And I think it does help us to have a much better sense of what people are going through, their pains. But even from the world of a contact center or an IT help desk, you as the person providing the service or support, you're living the same experience as that person on the other end who's at home dealing with their kids, trying to get their monitor connected or whatever else. So I think that's a really awesome example of, we all try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And now we're kind of being forced to in this new world. So I think those are really great examples and all really awesome things for people to kind of reflect upon in their own day-to-day work. Okay, so those are some really great takeaways. Let's talk about something more from like a new perspective. A lot of times these events are great for opening your perspective, as we've all said, providing some empathy. So Nick, what was something new you learned from either your session or from the overall event?
Yeah, I think there was one area. It was a little bit of a comedy moment, actually, but in preparation for one of the sessions, we had Simon Johnson from RBS talking about how they use Bolt 360, and actually they call their chatbot or their employee interface with Bolt 360 Ella. And Ella is an interface which provides guidance for agents and employees. And Simon was talking about in the preparation how they were able to assist and onboard 500 additional agents within a really short period of time because of the spikes on the inbound in the contact center. And he was saying, Ella as a sort of a conversational bot experience onboarding employees was just really cool because it helped accelerate that onboarding process. And I suddenly had this vision of Wall-E in the house, bringing my laptop to me and taking me through my security procedures. And, Simon was positioning it as almost like a sort of a concierge for each of the employees. And I thought that would be great. So I probably underestimated just how powerful that was. And it made a great impact. My knowledge is making a great impact for RBS. So, yeah, that was my big takeaway. We probably underestimate just how powerful our technology is sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a great example. And I think, people talk about the tech and looking forward looking, but then obviously we get, bogged down in kind of the trough of disillusionment of is it really there and is it really transformative? But it really can make someone's day-to-day better, especially in these challenging times. So that's an awesome example. What about for you, Chris? What was something new you learned?
I think it was across a lot of the sessions that I listened in on, the two that I kind of moderated, Chris Downs from Utility, and this kind of piggybacks on a little what Erica said. He made a comment saying that innovation, comes out of necessity, right? The same idea with all these companies, whether they're throwing new tools, new approaches, et cetera. But the impact that could have on whether it's your agents or just general workforce, it's all remote, can be a big risk. But I just think what I saw was just the resiliency of a lot of the employees and these agents, adopting to new tools, new processes, new technology, new ways to support customers and support each other, was just an amazing thread across everything. And I think it's just, I think it speaks wonders to, the businesses and infrastructure that you set up and just these challenges that are put in front of us that we kind of just tackle full bore. I know we've been trying to do it, at LogMeIn, but it was great to just hear that resonate across all the panelists and all the sessions.
Yeah, I'm always also surprised as well of it. Sometimes like the big challenges drive big focus, and when people can focus, they can do really awesome things. It's just always we get caught up in the day-to-day. So I think that's a great example of where these changes kind of rally the teams to then go say, okay, we know we can do this. Let's put our effort behind it and just get it done. So that's awesome. What about for you, Erica? What was something new you learned?
Yeah, so taking maybe a little different twist on this one because in The other session I had the opportunity to lead a discussion on was around diversity and how diversity within technology and our teams can help to drive innovation and transformation. And I got the pleasure of talking with 4 incredible leaders in the technology space, and who all shared very insightful ideas and thoughts, especially as we all go through this together. But one of the things that I gained a new perspective on is how, while we're all going through this time of being remote and balancing our personal and professional lives, whatever those individual challenges may be, it's really kind of leveling the playing field. So another kind of positive change I think that could come out of this is, there's nobody who is remote versus gets to be in the office and have those water cooler conversations, or nobody who's has to stay home with the kids versus and have those like greater responsibilities versus gets out of that. So I think it's different for everybody, but just something again that I think we can take this perspective and the learnings from this to carry forward and think about how we engage with our teams and ensure that those diverse ideas and thoughts get leveraged.
Yeah, I agree. There's a good rule of thumb that there was a company I worked at, and they said that when you go around the room to ask for ideas, you start with the junior person first, and they give their idea first. Because if the senior person gives their idea, everyone just head nods and says, "Oh yeah, of course, that's a great idea." And I think it's that same mentality of now everybody's on the same level playing field. How do we then promote more diversity of thought and different perspectives? So I love that. And Bob, what about for you? What was something interesting or new you learned from your session or from the overall event?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. One thing that was a very common theme for both of the gentlemen that I was moderating the panel for, and something that just kind of escaped me because I kind of live at the application level, it was the challenge of security in this entire shift to work from home. That they had employees that walked out the door with laptops and everything else, and how do you extend a secure environment when people are working on personal devices, they're working on official devices, and what a massive challenge that was for them. So here I am thinking that, at the application layer and remote support tools, but at the top of their mind was how to operate within a secure environment when you have 4,000 employees working at home, and what big challenge. And in fact, one of the gentlemen that supported college administrators, they actually had a pandemic plan. Of what to do in case a pandemic struck. So we talked about that a little bit, and I said, how close did it come? He said, actually, it wasn't bad. He said, we really enacted some of those things that were in the plan, and he remarked about security being a challenge. That there were some considerations that they didn't at first take. And again, the use of personal devices and things like that. But that was remarkable that he had a pandemic plan, number one, and that it actually came close to addressing some of their concerns.
And did his plan include employees working outdoors and what you do about that? Is that part of the?
Or children in their laps as they're trying to get their jobs done? Yes.
The impact of crayons on laptops. Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah, that might be an appendix in their pandemic plan.
All right. So I'll keep moving us forward. So last question. Originally our event was planned to be in person. Obviously, there's great things about having the events in person. That all got flipped over on its head, and this was a fully virtual event. For Nick, what was something, maybe a lesson learned or something interesting that was your perspective around making this event virtual?
Yeah, I think first of all, credit to all of our marketing org, because we had a bit of a review earlier in the week actually, and if you think about the timeline and you wind it back, I think it was 6 weeks that it flipped from being a physical event to a virtual event. And I just want to take my hat off to those guys. To be able to pull it round and deliver what they did is pretty amazing. My one sort of takeaway on, it not necessarily, can we do it better? I think we should always look to improve. But the one VIP lounge that we had for EMEA, we had AO.com, we had Bulb, Energy Company, and SAP, and they're all talking about customer loyalty. And it just got me thinking, because there's a lot of companies now that, their hands are being forced. They have to invest in digital transformation. There's never a better time for them to realize this, because a lot of these companies, they're actually going to die unless they adapt and change. And in many ways, it feels like it's quite similar for us. We're in this world. It's very unlikely we're going to be going back to the offices, in the short term, and certainly not attending physical events. So, what is it that we can do to improve? I mean, I think that the networking that we had and the VIP lounge was a really good example of having a lot of different industry representatives that were talking about their pain points and their challenges. Customer loyalty is a really, really big theme at the moment. Companies really want to look after their customers. And I was thinking, how could we elevate that and make that, even an even better experience of really getting our customers to collaborate. So I haven't got a sort of a single answer. I think that if we can double down on some of that good stuff and perhaps look at more collaboration between our customers for them talking about the value that we drive, that would be great. But in terms of, what is the right sort of platform or forum to do that? I think that's something that we're still learning about, but there's definitely opportunity to build on the success that we've had, from CXNext.
Yeah, that's great. I think that is always one challenge of like content you can curate. We're all used to watching the news, so we all know, video is a great format. But I think it's, to your point, it's like the rubbing elbows part of these events where it's like the cocktail hour or I'm getting a cup of coffee. It's like you miss those little bump into moments. And I think that's I think a lot of the innovation will come. So that's a great example. Chris, what about for you? What's something maybe you learned from taking this event virtual?
Just to echo what Nick said though about kudos to the team for pulling it together, I did want to give that as well and seeing it kind of from the inside. It was amazing what the team did. But I think one of the things that the team had focused on in what we didn't want to do, we'd watched a number of virtual events and conferences. I've attended a few over the few months since this has all happened. And a lot of the events, it really was just felt like almost a PowerPoint presentation and a webinar. And while webinar is good and they have their purpose, I'm not going to sit through 3-4 hours of just webinars being presented to me. So I thought a lot of the strength of our event and hopefully what others will take forward for some of them are a lot more of these kind of panel engagements where people are interacting with one another. It makes you feel like you're there and much more personable than someone just presenting to slides. So I think that was a huge takeaway. It felt like the sessions went quick. They were 30 to 45 minutes. But there was a lot of great content. You always kind of had the fluidity of different people talking rather than just a single person talking to slides, which sometimes, after, an hour of that can start to zone out a little. So I think that was probably one of the best components of how we tackled the agenda.
Yeah, really well said. I couldn't agree more with you. That's great. Erica, what about for you? What was something you took away about making this event virtual?
Yeah, I have two quick things. I'll keep them short, but one of those, it kind of builds off of what Chris was just speaking about on the interactive pieces being so important whenever we're all virtual. And my team was able to kind of moderate our interactive demo chat rooms. And while those were really well done, so again, kudos to the team for putting that together. I think one of the learnings that we had and some of the feedback from my team was it would be great if maybe we could just kind of urge people to use those more and in smaller chunks. So I think just kind of putting that in and spreading it out would be helpful in being more engaging, like to Chris's point. But then another learning I had was in moderating a panel and trying to have an engaging discussion with other people through a screen is a lot different from doing that when you're in their presence physically. So, something that I found that really helped with that is the prep time ahead and getting to know them and speaking about some of these topics and kind of figuring out the vibes with each other before. So, I think a learning would be if I were to do this again in the future, would just spend even more time on that because I think that was invaluable in prepping for our sessions.
Yeah, I think those are two good things too. It goes back to Nick's point about like, in a real world environment, it's easy to bump into someone and talk with them. And then in a real world environment, it's easy to point people to like, go to the demo room. In the virtual world, it's like, how do you do that? How do you prompt people to go engage? And then the same thing with the energy level. You don't have that audience feeding off of you. We do this show every week. And it's like, I have to remember to like hype myself up and get excited. I'm talking to a camera once again. Like someone out there is going to enjoy this. So I think you're definitely spot on. And Bob, what about you? Kind of closing us out here. What's something that you thought was an interesting aha about doing this event virtually?
Yeah, I mean, really a couple of things. I think one is that just in general, I find myself where I hardly ever used a camera before, even in these go-to meetings with customers and presentations, things like that. I mean, we've kind of adopted now, and this was kind of an affirmation of that. And it does make a difference. I think one of the things is it's hard to talk over each other when you're on one of these conference calls, and you're forced to listen and pay attention to everybody's comments. So I really have nothing better to do, like to me, and it was kind of a great joy to moderate a panel. And everybody felt like they had enough time to give their complete answer, and nobody ever talked over anybody. And it was really a great experience. So from that standpoint, the format kind of forces you to make sure that you have these really kind of robust conversations. I think the other side, the one thing that I hope we figure out someday on these conferences, I know that there was an audience that attended. Finding a way for them to interact in a meaningful way would be something that I think the technology has yet to achieve. So I may be a moderator on a panel, but it's a little bit constrained because I don't feel like the audience participation is quite there, or there's a way for them to meaningfully interact, even if they're giving, like, I don't know, thumbs up or thumbs down to what people say or something like that. But I think that maybe is in the future, I think, because I think this we're just kind of at the advent of these virtual conferences being a regular thing. So yeah, those are my two takeaways.
I think that's well said, and I think what I always try to do is like look to other industries for inspiration. You look at like, Facebook Live, and people can like, stream little emojis. So it's like, heart emojis and thumbs up emojis. So you're kind of like have the audience giving you real-time feedback. And I agree. Yeah. I think that's the one part we lose in the virtual. It's like nice to your point of it gives a lot of people the spotlight. It really scales your message, your interaction. But I think you lose that feedback loop, which we all love. And that's really the thing we value, whether it's a sales call, a virtual event, or whatever else. Well, I want to finally say thank you to the four of you. I know you thank the rest of the team, but you were part of that team doing that hard work. I certainly enjoyed the event. We'll obviously be sharing more content out of it, but I want to thank all of you for joining, sharing your perspective, and for all of your hard work. So really appreciate it.
No worries.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Ryan.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys take care. We'll talk soon, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Ryan. Cheers,
Take
guys.
care.